first time ever in Australia, which is just totally, like, I love that. I love that. Love it when we get exclusive stuff. So what I think was definitely one of the hottest companions the Doctor had. Really. You know she was. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome to our stage our next guest, the beautiful and talented Louise Jameson.
Thank you. Hello, hello. How are you?
Fantastic.
Yes, it's been good? Good convention?
Yeah.
Yeah, first time in Melbourne. First time in Australia, first time in Melbourne. Absolutely love it.
Melbourne's a mistake.
I'm often asked, how do you want to be billed? How do you want to be introduced? And I never quite know what to say. And recently I was touring with Gary Wilmot. Do you know Gary Wilmot? A famous actor, singer in England. And he was top billing and I was 17 out at 19 and then more or less straight into rep, where we did a play a fortnight. We literally started work at 10 o'clock in the morning and we worked through till 11 o'clock at night. 6 days a week, and on the 7th day we learnt lines and we pulled down sets and we put up the next one. We did a play a fortnight, so we rehearsed all day and performed in the evening a different play. But mistakes, I loved it. I just had the best time. All for £18 a week. Times change. And mistakes do happen when you do that kind of work. They're quite fun though, actors corpsing on stage. And I was doing a whodunit in Agatha Christie, and the actor, Lloyd Maguire, came on. And in rehearsals, you point 2 fingers when you have a gun. He was supposed to come on and shoot me. So we're on the first night, and he runs on stage, and he points 2 fingers at me. And he went, "Don't go away." Ran off stage, and I'm standing there like a wally waiting to be killed, right? And all you can hear in the wings is, "Where the is the gun? Where the..." And he comes back on without the gun, kicks me in the leg, and says, "My boot is poisoned." So I think I'm the only actress to die of a poisoned ankle. Soon after that, I was touring in America, and Shakespeare is absolutely my first love. I think if you can play Shakespeare well, you can play anything. And I was playing Viola, Become Identical. I was pregnant at the time. I think playing a pregnant man is probably my hardest role. My hardest role yet. But Viola has a line, which is on stage, and she's chatting to the audience, and she has a line, "Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness wherein the pregnant enemy does much." Well, pregnant enemy actually means the devil within. But because I was in America, Americans being Americans, and the fact that I was 7 months pregnant by the end of the tour, and it was so obvious, "Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness wherein the pregnant enemy does much," I was getting a round of applause. It was fabulous. The company, spent 3 years there, very early on in my career. And one of my very first curtain calls was in King John. And I played Blanche, and she's dead by the interval. And I don't know if it's the same here, but in England, if you're dead by the interval, you don't have to take the curtain call. So you're quids in, you're in the pub by 9 o'clock, hurrah. However, you do take it on the first and the last night. Well, it's true, you know, actors being actors, on a first night, we do like to celebrate a bit. So there I am, dead by the interval. I've got an hour and a half to kill before I can get on stage for the curtain call, which has not been rehearsed. And I say to the director, "Where do you want me to stand?" And he said, "Oh, just follow Jonathan Kent on, take his hand, and that's centre stage in the front row. Hurrah, lovely." So I dutifully did follow Jonathan Kent on, but I have had 3 glasses of wine by now, okay? So I followed Jonathan Kent on. Nobody's told Jonathan Kent that I'm following him on and taking his hand, and I watch as his hand holds somebody else's in front of me. Oh, okay, can't get in the front line. What I'll do is I'll join the line behind. So I turned round to join them, And I watched as these hands joined behind me, and there I am, left, centre stage, drunk, taking a rather wobbly curtsy. My mum was in the audience. Oh, she was so cross. "You're pissed, young lady." She came into the dressing room afterwards. I've had some really lovely leading men in my time. Does anybody watch Bergerac? Does Bergerac come over here? Yeah. Bergerac is just, you don't know it. It's a TV cop series.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you do know.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, that's right. So, I did 4 years of being John Nettle's mistress. Tough job. Someone has to do it. And he was always such a wonderful, wonderful gentleman to work with. I absolutely adored him. And so polite. We had a lot of love scenes in the bedroom, and often in the bed. And we had this one scene where our naked feet were seen intertwining, and then the camera came up and over the duvet, and then rested on our heads, doing pillow talk, all very respectable, all very BBC. And his trousers showed. He always kept his trousers on for those scenes, bless. And his trousers showed, and they said, we can see the turn-ups. And so he leapt out of bed and started to roll them up even further. And I said, "John, we've known each other 4 years now. Take them off, it's fine, I don't mind." And he went, "Louise, it's like this. If I get excited, I'm embarrassed. If I don't, you're insulted. We'll just keep it a secret, shall we?" What a darling man, really darling. I'm coming into Doc Martin. Does anyone watch Doc Martin here? Yeah. Yeah, so I've gone from one doctor to another. This time I'm the mother-in-law, not the love interest. Mother-in-law from hell. Martin Clunes and I loathe each other on sight. Actually, off camera, he's just adorable. So I think you've had episode 2 out here now. Yeah. So I come in episode 4, so... if you don't watch Doc Martin, I'd suggest you do. I just think it's such a lovely, gentle, slightly old-fashioned, kind of 80s feel to it. It's really, really lovely series. Makes me laugh, anyway. And as far as leading mans are concerned, one question I'm always asked, can you guess? What's Mr. Baker like to work with? Yes, what's Tom Baker like to work with? And I always used to skirt around the answer. Oh, he's so talented. I believe all this. So talented, so dedicated to the programme. You know, absolutely passionate about it all. And sometimes that kind of talent can be a little difficult to work with. And I just kind of sidestep away. And then I heard him on Radio 4 when they were looking for Billy Piper. How good was Billy Piper? Yeah? Yeah, fabulous. And when they first cast her, I thought, oh, gosh, so unimaginative. What are they doing? You know, just because she's been, what's-his-face's girlfriend, and, well, eat my words. I thought she was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes, what's Tom Baker like to work with? So he was asked on Radio 4 who he thought the new companion should be. And he said, Melinda Messenger. Do we know Melinda Messenger in this part of the world? Melinda Messenger, she's in, he said, the interviewer said, why Melinda Messenger? He said, well, she's the perfect companion. They said, why? He said, well, 3 reasons. She's got huge assets, yes, thank you. No brain, and she screams a lot. And I thought, I don't think I'm going to be so loyal now. I do think he's a wonderful actor. I think he's so charismatic and extraordinary to watch. And just recently, Big Finish, do we know about Big Finish? Yeah, I've just done 6 stories and I've got 2 more to come working with him, and he's so mellow and funny and brings in fruit and puddings and just generous, like it's really, really sweet. And on the commentaries on the DVDs, he's been hugely apologetic for the way he reacted with me. And every now and again, we're working together now, and he goes, I was quite horrible to you in the 70s, wasn't I? And I go, yes. And he goes, well, how could I with those legs? Bless him.
He's got a point.
And of course, leading man Sylvester. Yeah, I know. I've only done one. I've only actually worked on camera with him once when we did a charity Doctor Who. And did he tell this story? Okay, he arrived. The script. Have you seen this?
Yes.
Oh, is it? It's on YouTube. I couldn't understand the script. I had no idea. And it's this thick. It arrives on the doorstep. So, and we're only filming for the one day. So, Sylvester arrives late with a hangover because he had a first night the night before. And Colin and Peter, and I think somebody else, I can't remember. John, was it John? Thank you. Had arrived earlier, and they'd been given, loads of techno speak. But because Sylvester wasn't there, they were saying, oh, I can't do these lines, Sylvester will do them, he's good at all that. So Sylvester arrived late, hungover, and an enormous amount of techno babble to learn in the space of about 10 minutes. So my day was, well, I can't work with Sylvester without laughing anyway. And we started the scene, kind of quite far apart, talking to each other. It was the very, very early days of Steadicam, and they were incredibly heavy. So they imported this gorgeous cameraman from Germany. Blonde Adonis arrived, because you have to be amazingly strong and fit to carry these Steadicams. And he had to circle round and round and round us. But there was also an enormous amount of wire and cable, so we started kind of 12 foot away from each other. We ended up nose to nose by the end of the scene. What with Sylvester's techno-baggle, my giggling, and this gorgeous hunk running round and round and round us, I could hardly, barely get a word out. But it's been lovely sitting beside him out there for 2 days. He's just smashing. He's shown me all around Melbourne, because he's been here loads, hasn't he? He's virtually emigrated, I think.
So true.
Okay, has anybody got any questions for me? Yes.
You talked about the people you work with in the theatre. Thanks. You talked about the people you work with in the theatre. You worked a little bit with Stephen Burkoff. Is he just a genius, or is he just mad?
Stephen Burkoff, is he a genius or is he mad? Debate. I've done two plays with Stephen. The first one was called Sit and Shiver. You have to be very careful how you say that. And I was the token shiksa, and just had to come on and take over the stage for 20 minutes and disappear. I was his darling. I was his absolute darling. And he was so kind and complimentary and wonderful. Then he asked me to be Jocasta in Oedipus earlier this year. I have never had such a miserable experience. I don't know if you know Stephen Burkoff's work, but it was very innovative in the 80s, and it's a lot to do with slow motion. Everything is incredibly physical, and he works very much from the outside in, completely the opposite way to me, which is fine, because one likes a challenge. But because everybody's moving in slow motion, it's me and 10 men, which you think would be heaven, wouldn't you? Didn't quite work out like that. So they're all in these workman's boots and workman's clothes, and they're being able to do this whole kind of physical thing. I joined them a week late because of other work. I'm in 6-inch heels, on a rake, a stage like this, in a frock, walking backwards most of the time. And he's going, well, yeah, what's wrong with you? You can't move. Why can't you move? Do you practice at home? What's wrong with it? All the time, all day, every day. They said that about Ginger Rogers, didn't they? She did everything that Fred Astaire did, but in heels and backwards. So it was a deeply unpleasant experience.
When Tom Baker was going to regenerate, John Nathan Turner was going to try to bring you back for one more go?
You know, we've all got the ones that got away, and that was one of mine. He brought me back and said, would I do Tom leaving, Peter joining, and stay for the series? And I said, I'd do Tom leaving and Peter go yes to the whole thing. It was John Nathan Turner. I knew he'd become a producer, and he said, would I come to the BBC for lunch? And he had something to discuss, which was this offer. And I thought, oh, lunch at the BBC. And I swanned into the bar, and he bought me a packet of peanuts and a Diet Coke. This is where the BBC budget kicked in. And I also discovered at the end of an hour and a half that my dress had been tucked into my knickers the entire time. And I said no. So it was a really, I don't think the stars were with me that day. There's someone over here had their hand up quite a while.
This one.
With your character Leela on Doctor Who, how much of yourself do you put into that character?
That's a really interesting question. I try to put a little, you know, people talk about acting as going into somebody else's skin. I don't think that's what happens, because you are in your skin. This is it. This is the tool of your trade. So what you do is find something of you in that person and get that to fill your whole skin. So with Leela, I thought I didn't want to make her stupid. I wanted her to be very intelligent, just uneducated. And there was a little girl upstairs called Sally. And I used to watch her, bright little kid, fantastic, into everything. And I also had a dog at the time called Bosie, who when he heard something would just suddenly, so the whole body language of the dog, and I tried to incorporate those two things. I really like Leela. I think she was very like Blanche in many ways. In Tenko, does anybody watch Tenko over here? It's about a women's prisoner of war camp. Based on fact, and she was a kind of feisty prostitute that got caught up in the prison. And I think she had, what they both had in common was absolutely no censorship between the brain and the mouth. It's just like you take things literally and you say what you think, and you have fantastic survival instincts. So I really like, Leela was a bit like I'd like to be, really. I censor everything. I want to be a good girl, you know. Yes, very pretty yellow dress there.
I was wondering if you have ever taken something off the Doctor Who set or kept it, or, you know, acted.
What? I tell you what, the knife, the blunt one, I had a sharp one for the first story, and then I nearly killed a robot in Robots of Death. I don't know how it happened. Actually, it was the cameraman. So the camera's there and the robot's there, and I'm supposed to go with the knife, and it went this cameraman like that. So take two, everybody left the studio. Anyway, I took the knife, and it raised £1,000, which went straight to Romanian orphans. Yeah. Well, BBC, thank the BBC. And I still have one of the costumes. The tennis dress one, not the other one. Yeah, the tennis dress one. My niece wore it to a fancy dress the other day. Yeah, it's good, it's still in great nick. Yes, questions, two questions here.
The 50th anniversary is coming up in 2013. Would you go back for that, and what would you think they should do with it?
I would go back into Doctor Who in a nanosecond.
Cool.
I just love it now. I think Matt Smith's amazing. I love David Tennant. I just love it. I think they should bring Leela back, and I think she should have a football team of children behind her, all boys. I think she should come in like Mother Earth, do you know what I mean? Just rescue the Doctor or something like that. Yeah, I think it would be great. Sylvester had a great idea yesterday. He said, what they should do is just cast as many of the retro people as they can, but not in the characters that They were. So I wouldn't be Leela, obviously he wouldn't be the Doctor. So, but we did just have other characters. And he said, maybe we could all be monsters so you couldn't quite recognise us. So it would be like, spot the retro when you watched it. I think it's a great idea, don't you? I think it would, still a bit expensive for them, but hey. It's about time they paid us properly, isn't it? Have most people here seen it?
Yeah.
It was like the X-Files, but without the budget. So we were three scientists, myself and Jimmy Hazeldine and John Carlyle, investigating the paranormal, and we had a Russian spy. It was always Russia, wasn't it? We had a Russian spy in our midst, which happened to be John Carlyle. I loved it. I got to play a doctor, Dr. Anne Reynolds, and the love interest was Jimmy Hazeldine. Lucky me. And we filmed up in Scotland, which was great. The experience was fantastic. I loved working with both of them. And we did that good old-fashioned thing called rehearsal, you know, which doesn't happen so much now. We all gave up smoking on episode 8, the three of us gave up smoking on episode 8, and suddenly our actors' choices, from having been this really jolly, calm, lovely, we were suddenly all shouting at each other. There was one very spooky experience where Jimmy's character had to be taken over by the devil. And we didn't have any, you know, computer-generated images at all, obviously. We filmed it in 79, I think.
Yeah.
And so we had to wait for ages to get this special effect of superimposing the devil's face over Jimmy's. Really took a long time, and the second they got it right, the entire studio went into blackout. And it was in blackout for 4.5 hours, and we never found the reason why. Lights were working everywhere else in the thing. Nina, Nina, Nina. Doo-dum, doo-dum. Really spooky. So, but yeah, good experience, really nice experience. Oh yes, somebody there?
Another show, complete contrast, your time on EastEnders, which we thoroughly enjoyed watching. You know, everybody's going to die.
EastEnders was a weird one. It got both my kids through uni, so that's kind of, you know, as a single parent to suddenly be given a 2-year contract, that was really fantastic. It was very us and them, you know, the people on the top floor and the actors in the studio. I was sacked from it for reasons that I absolutely do not understand. Or they didn't sack, they didn't, you know, renew the contract. In the November, they said to me, we want you to take over the Vic, we want you to, you know, become the linchpin of the whole series, the family, we love what you're doing, da 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 da. In February we had a new producer, and that was it. The DeMarcos were out, which was my family. And that's fine, you know, a new producer comes in, a clean sweep, of course that's what's going to happen. I got into Bergerac because one girlfriend left and another one joined, so, you know, that's just what goes around comes around. What I was really upset about was that as I left the producer's office after he told me, with my hand on the door handle, he went, "Oh, and it's in the papers tomorrow." And always before they've said, if I'm leaving a series or if I'd chosen to leave or if they thought it was time, they call you into the press office and they go, "What are you doing next? Can we help with the publicity?" Da, 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 da. It was just it was the weirdest lack of respect. It was like there was some kind of personal, and I'm quite easy to work with. I mean, Tom may tell you different, but I'm quite easy to work. You know, I've always been very respectful of the environment and the management and everything. You know, do my best job I can. So I don't quite know why that happened. So I was left with a pretty sour taste in my mouth from it, really. I loved my kids, though. I loved all 4 of the kids that they gave me. Just fantastic. And my daughter, the youngest daughter in it, got 8 O-levels at 16, all A stars. And I was just, you'd think I was a mother, you know, running around the set with the certificates going, look how well she's done. It was just fabulous. Fabulous.
My clothes, lovely, open the door. on, he's sitting waiting on a set, and I went up and I said, Tom, I'm sorry I did that, but I just think it was right for the story, right for the character, right for the... And he cut me short. He said, that's all right, no problem. And from there on, we started to get on a lot better. I just thought, oh, I wish I'd done that before on the first. And my other great, lovely, fun moment was I was so cold when we did The Sunmakers. We were filming on top of Will's factory in Bath or Bristol. Really, really cold, and for some reason I hadn't got a coat or my dress or something. And he got his scarf and he literally wrapped me up in it. I was like a mummy, like this, from top to toe. And when they said action, he spun me out to go again. So when he behaved like that, it was just adorable. Embarrassing moments. I think whenever anyone was behind me on a ladder, or the camera, the cameramen occasionally would keep the camera on too long, or or I got caught kind of making the costume a bit comfier than it perhaps might have been. But I can't think of anything too specific. So, okay, another question. Hi. They hire their own costumes. So, hire their own props. So we couldn't have K9 in the studio. Do you know I didn't get the K9 gag until about the 4th episode? Because it's written K9. So we had John on all fours running around the studio. He said it's the only voiceover he's done where he's put in for a dry cleaning bill afterwards. But I think because we'd had that relationship, with John's little puggy face, and I think that transferred when we did get the tin dog, which was pretty useless, the first one. As much as I adored him, so I think that transferred itself into the studio, and it was lovely to see Tom and K9 doing the Times crossword, because we'd have John in a booth over in the corner of the studio. So absolutely delightful. I loved working with him. Have you ever had John Leeson over here?
Yes.
Has he told you the story about the American convention he went to? Yeah. Did you? Well, has everybody heard this? Can I tell this story?
Tell it again.
John went to a convention in America to find out he was the only guest. So they had a K9 convention. It's so sweet. Anyway, he said, they said, how do you want to be introduced? So he suggested a sound-alike competition, but not to have it until the evening. So he spent all day wandering around like a fan, with caps and badges and camera and autograph books and memorabilia and the whole kit and caboodle. And he entered the competition, and he came second. And the first one, got all the applause and and then they went with a real John Leeson, please, and he ran from the back of the auditorium and he'd spoken to as many fans as he could all day because nobody knew what he looked like then. They were thrilled that they'd been had like that. He was just the best. He had the best time. Loved it. Okay, any more questions?